Welcome to War Thunder with Subdude. How y'all doing today? Well, I'm going to go over our brand new top tier naval jet bomber, fighter bomber, the FJ-4B. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm calling it a fighter bomber rather than a top tier naval fighter. Well, the reason I'm calling it a fighter bomber is because that is what it is. It is in no way, shape, or manner the equal of the F-86 A5, other than the fact that it carries a incredible amount of ordnance compared to the A5. The A5 is actually faster, climbs better, and is fairly well armed with 650 calibers. This plane is slower. It has a worse climb rate, and it maneuvers much worse than the F-86 A5. Now, some of you are probably going, but how can that be? It has a bigger engine and all this. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. It does have a much bigger engine. An engine which is not only a bit heavier, but it puts out over 1,000 kilograms more force. But here's the problem. This aircraft is a naval fighter bomber. It is an extremely robust airframe, which means it's heavier. It is a much larger airframe, which means more drag. It has permanent wing-mounted drop points, which means more drag, even though they're not showing up on the model for the stripped out. But all in all, the plane is heavier, and it's heavier overall. Stronger frame, stronger wings, stronger landing gear. All that adds up to considerably more weight. And with considerably more weight, you have more drag, which means you go slower. This plane does not climb as well as any F-86 in the game. This plane does not turn as well as any F-86 in the game. The only thing this does better than any F-86 in the game is carry ordnance. And it can carry a lot of ordnance. It can carry 6 250-pound bombs, 6 500-pound bombs, 2 1,000-pound bombs, 2 1,000-pound bombs, and 4 500-pound bombs, or 2 2,000-pound bombs, or 6 rocket pods. Now, of all the ordnance that this plane can carry, the rocket pods I find to be the most annoying. And some of you may be wondering why they're annoying. Well, they are not droppable. You cannot get rid of them if you have a fighter jumping you. They reduce your forward airspeed by over 170 kilometers an hour, meaning that you fall into the same range as, oh, I don't know, Venoms. You might even fall into the range of something like the Yak-23. Carrying the rocket pods is pretty much what I would consider a surefire death sentence. With the bombs, at least you can throw them away and then become a fighter. But in the case of the FJ-4B, it is not becoming an air superiority fighter. It is slower than the F-86A5. It is not as maneuverable as the F-86A5. It is not as maneuverable as any of the F-86s at all. That includes the F-2, F-25, F-30, and F-40. It is not as maneuverable as the CL-13A, and don't even get me started on the MiGs. It could probably outmaneuver a Hunter, but that might be pushing it. And it might even have a hard time with Mystere. Sorry, had to go away for a second. Cat was crying to go out, but he's gone and I'm back. Alright, now, the one good thing about this plane is its supposed high altitude performance. At about 36,000 feet, you do the metric conversion, this plane is capable of Mach 1.01. How many times in War Thunder has anyone been at 36,000 feet fighting with jets? Not very often. Now, maybe some of the bombers have gotten up there, and I understand that they can climb like crazy, especially like a Batur. But most of the fighting takes place sub 10,000 feet. And this plane doesn't climb as fast as an F-86A5. So, there's a lot of planes that can climb up a lot higher, a lot faster. Let's just take a look at my completely unimproved F-86F2. We can already see the climb rate unimproved, and I have absolutely no modifications to this thing. As you can see, is considerably higher. Its top speed with no improvements is 1 kilometer an hour slower than the fully upgraded FJ-4B. And let's talk about the guns on the FJ-4B. Now, the other cannon saber is armed with the FMC cannons. Well, this one's armed with the Colt Browning revolver cannons. They fired the same 20mm shell, the 20 by 110. They have the same velocity, they have the same loadout, same firing profile, and roughly the same rounds per minute, rounds per second, however you wish to prove it. It's just the Navy decided to go a different way when they were purchasing that, and they basically stuck with the Colt Browning revolver cannons until the M61 Vulcan, which again used the 20mm by 110 round. So we haven't really gotten past the 20 by 110, and we didn't get past it until we got to the F8AV, or the A, whatever the Harrier is. And the Harrier was armed with the 25mm Gatling gun. I think that's the GAU 25 or something like that. Whatever. But The 120 or the 20 millimeter rounds on this, it carries more than the Air Force version, but again, you've got a larger airframe, you've got a larger, more robust airframe, and it basically can carry a lot more stuff, which means it loses in maneuverability and it loses in top speed and climb rate. So, is this a air superiority fighter? No. Not with the other Tier 9 aircraft. Is it a very fast attack bomber? Fighter bomber, if you will. Yes, it is a good fighter bomber. But I would not take this thing into a fair fight with a G91 pre-series or the R1, and God help us if we get the R3 in the game, or the G91Y. I wouldn't take it up against CL-13As. I would not take it up against MiGs, MiG-15s, Yak-30s, MiG-15 BISs, or MiG-17s. I would be skeptical about going up against the Mysteers. Well, maybe the 2C I would be skeptical about. I might be willing to go up against the 2A. And basically on a maneuvering scale, I would say it might have an edge on the Hunter, but it won't have an edge on the Venom. So, what do you use this plane for? Well, considering it gets a ground start, and if you're going to use it as an attacker, you have to take off with a full load of weaponry and go to the attack site. The rocket pods are going to be a death sentence. I don't care what anyone says. You're not going to be maneuverable. You're going to lose over 170 miles or kilometers an hour from your top speed, and you can't get rid of them. Once you put them on, you're stuck with them. And just remember, even if you fly in ground forces and use them, and you empty all of your rockets and kill a whole bunch of stuff and go back to base, you can't change your weapons loadout. You're stuck with what you've got. At least that's the way it was the last time I played ground forces, and I don't play ground forces anymore. But that's what I remember, and unless they've changed that, that's what you got. So they see, the enemy team sees you up in an FJ-4B, they may come at you with something like a MiG, and you're dead. Unless he's stupid and he comes head on. But don't count on that. Now, the FJ-4B, do I think it's a decent plane to fly? Yeah, I like it. But we also need the missions to fly it. Ground forces, I wouldn't fly it at all. And the reason I wouldn't fly it is because AAA at the tier that this plane is going to be flying is murderous. Now I know some YouTubers are going to show you their super whammy-dine maneuvers, and they're going to be zipping in and zipping out and doing hammerheads and all this and putting rockets on target. And let me tell you, it's going to be 1 in 50. maybe. Because some guy on the ground with a shilka is going to look up at him and go, "Easy meat," and it's going to be all over but the crying. Or some guy that's, you're in arcade and they're sitting there with a Vulcan. Oh my goodness. The fire stream. But you're gone. So, air realistic? Yeah, that's probably it. Air simulator. It's got a nice cockpit. It's beautiful. It's fun to fly. I like it, but it is not an air superiority fighter. It is a fighter bomber. And if you could ever get it up to altitude of 36,000 feet, again, you do the metric conversion, then you're supposed to be able to go Mach 1.01, which is just breaking the sound barrier. I don't know if anything else can go that fast, but this plane, nah. You're never going to get there because it takes so long to climb. And just remember, the 6,890 foot per minute climb rate is an initial climb rate. It does drop off. And the minute you load it up with ordnance, throw your climb rate right out the window. We'll just load it up with the 6 500-pound bombs. And you can see your climb rate is absolutely gone. So, and it's the same way if you load up the rockets or the other bomb loads. I mean, the bigger the bomb load, the slower you climb. And these are the Mark 80 series bombs, the super slick ones that glide through the air faster and better and all that good stuff. But this plane, I like it, but it is not an air superiority fighter. It's better than any other Navy fighter at the moment, but it still isn't on par with the Air Force fighters. And that's about all I've got. This is Subdued signing off. Y'all have a pleasant today, a better tomorrow, and we'll catch you in the sky in Air Realistic. Bye-bye, folks.